Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why No One Plays. First, I want to apologize to all fans of the Splatoon series, but I spent like an hour trying to find a suitable track to use as background music, and none of the tracks I found really felt like they could fit the tone of my videos, which sucks because one of the things I was looking forward to for each episode was play music from the character's game of origin, but hopefully you're okay with a little danganronpa. Anyways, for today's episode we're going to be going over another character who was debated about as a very promising new addition to the franchise way back in late 2018. Roughly 4 years later though, and we still have yet to see any major representative of the fighter, with most of their top users having dropped them in favor of other choices. But in contrast to previous installments featuring high-profile characters, Inkling's decline in results and popularity seems peculiar when you think of all the things that they have along with their update history. So for today, we're gonna roll through the character to try to explain what was the cause of their decline from public attention. Sorry for having to bring up the disclaimer every video, but just in case this is the first one you people check out, I just want to add it for the sake of consistency. To all Inkling mains out there, let me first start out by saying welcome, and this video is not meant to be a personal attack against you or your main. I have no grudge against either of you. The goal of Why No One Plays is to analyze why some characters are less popular than others by breaking down the ins and outs of their attributes and properties. Hopefully in doing so, I can provide more exposure to them and encourage some of you to give them a try. But with that done, let's begin. Unlike many of Smash's veteran collaborators like Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, Fire Emblem and such, the video game franchise Splatoon is a fairly new one. But while it may be decades younger, Splatoon has taken over the Nintendo landscape by storm, with its debut game for the Wii U receiving a sequel for the Nintendo Switch not even 2 years later, and as of making this video, a third release will be live on September 9th. Its breakneck success has garnered enough attention for its lovable Inklings to be considered as potential candidates for the advent of Smash Ultimate. For Sakurai and his team, that was a no-brainer. Not only was Inkling the first new Smash Ultimate fighter revealed, but it was also in tandem with the announcement of Smash Ultimate, the game. Designing Inkling's moveset was going to be a challenge. While their game of origin has no shortage of lively and animated moves, realistically that could only be transcribed into their specials, brilliantly executed on if I might add. As far as Splatoon is concerned, while the bulk of its gameplay does consist of player versus player action, there's no combat in a literal sense. Rather, it's a territory control game where the goal is to coat as much of the map with your specific paint color as possible, so all of their normal attacks had to be improvised, and the results were ambiguous to say the least. Inkling's playstyle in Smash can be described in many ways, but the one that would sum up your experience playing them the most would have to be hit and run, which entails any fighter whose win condition is to strafe back and forth to evade enemy attacks while getting quick hits in of their own. This largely capitalizes on their superior ground or air speed, which lets them cover large distances in a short period of time, thus allowing them to engage and retreat within seconds. This archetype tends to overlap with other reaction or mobility-centric ones like Rushdown or Bait and Punish. True to the pace of their gameplay back home, Inkling's best trait is no doubt their exceptional speed both in terms of physics and attacks. Their dash has garnered a notorious reputation for how low to the ground it keeps them while traveling extremely quickly. It makes sense from a thematic standpoint, they're literally swimming in the ground. Alongside that, it has a rather obscure animation, sharing visual similarity with other movement options like rolls and spot dodges. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Inkling's dash stands as the best in Smash Ultimate in virtually every way. I'd shudder to think of any other character having the same dash dancing capabilities, especially at that speed. By extension, their movement causes them to be very good at whiff punishing opponents, as they can dash back then forth quickly, which allows them to exercise their other distinguished trait, damage. Thanks to their unique mechanics, certain attacks will cover opponents struck in ink, increasing the damage dealt to them relative to how much of their body is painted, with a maximum 1.5 times damage bonus. For all intents and purposes, being fully painted is like Inkling having Shulk's Buster Art at no sacrifice to their kill power. Couple that with the base damage of their attacks and they can bring you into triple-digit percents with just a few strings, which is, as I'm sure you figured out by now, easy to do in light of their playstyle. To offset the high damage racking potential of this effect, their supply of ink is finite and has to be replenished regularly over the course of a match. It's not as big of a micromanagement element as say Shulk's Monado Arts, but it's still something to consider. One aspect of their kit that I don't see many people bring up is their surprisingly varied moveset. Earlier I said that you could describe them in many different ways, and that's because they possess attacks that can apply to different playstyles. For example, their fantastic grab range allows them to grapple in conjunction with their amazing dash. They can play reasonably safe as well. Splatter Shot and Splat Bomb can pressure enemies from a distance, and while neither of them will help out in sending your opponent into the blast zone, they can force them to approach, since if they don't, they'll be gradually coated with more and more ink. Quite often they get misunderstood as a rushdown fighter too, considering their high ground and air mobility allows them to chase after targets with attacks, not to mention their relatively consistent low percent combos. With the help of their very fast attacks and diverse special moves, Inkling is also able to moonlight as a trapper, using things like Splat Roller and Splat Bomb to set up tech chases and force ledge trap scenarios very well. And of course, their most notorious playstyle, they have the luxury to play a very spacing-oriented win condition courtesy of their back air, which swings their paint gun behind them with a frame 7 startup and a massive disjoint, rivaling even sword fighter aerials, and absurd safety on shield, being almost completely unpunishable. With such variety in playstyle, it starts to illustrate a very clear reason as to why the court of public opinion had high expectations for Inkling at the start. That said, this is starting to sound very similar, isn't it? It's the same impression that Sheik, Shulk, and Joker gave off as well, but Inkling's situation is different from theirs, despite starting out in more or less identical positions. The dominant narrative behind the previous 3 episodes was how extreme they were as characters. Sheik's overwhelming speed was cancelled out by the need for her to string 3, 4, sometimes 5 times more individual attacks against her opponent compared to what they had to land against her. Joker's kill power is almost exclusively locked within a set time frame, and Shulk's Monado arts alter his attributes to such an extent that it makes her a very polarizing character. In essence, their issue is that they swing too far in one direction. Inkling's is the opposite. They don't go far enough. It may sound counterintuitive, but being a generalist is more of a flaw than an asset in competitive games. The idea is for you to have enough of every major fundamental to where it's not an egregious vulnerability, then take the rest of your eggs and stuff it into a single basket. Or in other words, better to be really good at one thing than to be okay at a lot of things. Fox specializes in suffocating aggression, Snake specializes in putting you in a lose-lose situation, Min can outspace you from all the way across the stage. In fairness, there are a good number of all-rounded characters who are rated very highly, such as Palutena, Wolf, and Game & Watch, but despite having an all-purpose kit, their power budget is allocated in such a way that it somewhat compensates for their exposed weak points. That and they're not as centered to the same extent as Inkling. For example, Game & Watch's lightweight and lack of raw kill power is alleviated by his disjointed range, fantastic disengage tool in the form of his up B, and the fact that he can easily throw you into a terrible position to where his ostensible lack of kill pressure is irrelevant. What Wolf lacks in recovery he makes up for with his terrifying onstage presence. Here's where Inkling's primary issue comes into play. Their power budget is spread too thin across their entire kit that they don't have enough of any playstyle or any strength to drive it home. While this means they don't have major deficiencies in any field, it also implies they don't carry any meaningful advantage to leverage against their opponent. No X factor basically, and the limitations of their pressure become very evident when you apply the compensatory element that I brought up a second ago to them. For starters, one of Inkling's shining virtues is their immaculate safety on shield, with several of their attacks possessing sufficient range and/or low enough landing lag to be impossible to punish by the majority of the cast. However, their attacks don't have enough base damage to reliably pressure their opponent's shield. This makes holding shield against Inkling relatively safe barring grabs, as the likelihood of them breaking your shield is pretty much non-existent. For comparison, Fox and Cloud's poor grab games are taken care of by how hard they can pressure shields, most notably near the ledge. 2 hits from either back air cuts your shield down by over half, which forces you to choose an option so as to avoid getting shield broken, an option that they're most likely waiting to punish. Another one is that Inkling has high damage racking combos, but their kill power at base is subpar even for combo heavy characters. None of their attacks are able to threaten opponents enough at high percents, even though a lot of them are safe on shield, so it takes an exorbitant amount of patience to play this character. Conversely, someone like Roy has mediocre damage in all of his attacks, but it's made up for with staggering kill pressure. In last hit scenarios, almost all of his attacks, from ground normals to aerials to specials, have enough knockback scaling to where getting hit by any of them spells death. Inkling doesn't have this, they can only score kills through setups in a similar fashion to Sheik. Ordinarily, requiring setups is not considered a downside. After all, a lot of fast characters have low KO potential as far as individual moves go, like Mario, Pikachu, and Falco, but what they do have is consistently accessible setups. While it may be true that they don't have a lot of oomph as far as their safe hits go, they can force their opponent into a situation where their strong hits can connect safely. Falco's back air is his premier weapon for closing out stocks, and he can do that very easily with up tilt, which he can get very easily with his drag down aerials like neutral air and forward air, which he can then get very easily with the meteor spike setup in the form of his down air. Mario has a plethora of ways to end your stock quickly, either through up air strings into a forward air spike, up air strings into an up B finish near the top blast zone, fireball setups to allow for easy grabs into back throw, or even jab block scenarios followed by a forward smash. Like Inkling, they need setups to get their strong moves in, but those setups can be achieved at almost any percent. Now that's not to say Inkling has no setup whatsoever. They do have an easy way to close out stocks at mid percents through up throw up air, but the percent at which they can do it successfully differs from character to character and even case by case. I'm not privy to the details, but if memory serves, the percent window can fluctuate based on how much ink they have. Point being, it's not consistent. I think it's only like a 10% range, which isn't very lenient at all. The only other way they can end stocks early is through Splat Roller, which can bury opponents for an obscene amount of time in the late game, enough for you to land any smash attack you want, even charged up a bit. However, Inkling lacks the means to land Splat Roller reliably and safely. It has amazing tech chase potential, but they themselves don't have an easy way to set up tech chases at high percent, since all of their attacks send opponents either too far or too high above the ground to have to tech. Just imagine if Inkling had Roy or Crom's down tilt, you could just down tilt into Roller all day every day. All of these factors combined bring me to their next issue. Much of Inkling's pressure hinges on the opponent not knowing what is and isn't possible for them at what percent or what position. Or in layman's terms, they're very honest characters. Oh, make no mistake, if you get hit by Roller past 100%, you'd have to rip your controller to pieces if you want to mash out of it fast enough, but as far as going against them, it's rather straightforward. There's no degenerate gimmick or stupid cheese you have to watch out for that will send you flying miles away. If you lose to Inkling, most of the time it's either because they were just better than you or you don't know what the character does. There's nothing in their repertoire that can't be dealt with by quote-unquote getting good. Like I said, they don't have so much of anything that it influences how the match is supposed to be played. I know it sounds really stupid how having an honest kit is a bad thing, but in the upper echelon of play, BS is the X factor in a match. When you have players who are literally nanometers apart from each other in terms of skill, it comes down to what kind of sauce the character has that lets them inch forward just enough for you to close out a match. Do you think Gluto would have much success as he does if he never used Waft? Do you think Spargo would be as consistent as he was without Limit? Do you think Leo would be able to take super majors with a seemingly average character if Byleth didn't have moves that could cheese your stock in under 70%? Every pro player's character of choice has some level of dependence on their privileges. Not to discredit their skill, mind you, but no player can deny that part of what made them choose the mains they did is because of whatever perks they come with. That's how Smash Bros is. Heck, that's how any competitive game with different characters is. Among other things, a big reason why people don't like to play Inkling despite their vast array of strengths is because they don't have sauce. Nothing in particular that draws excitement or outrage from players. Everything they do is very honest and straightforward, no BS. They're a very well-balanced character, but that means you'll never see them doing what others can't do and more, and that's due to the fact that once again they don't have enough of anything to push them over the edge of being overtuned in one area or another. High damage, below kill power. Amazing mobility for whiff punishes, but average whiff punish game, including bad out of shield options. Safe attacks, but low shield pressure. Good edge guarding and ledge trapping, but difficulty getting opponents off stage to begin with. Everything neutralizes the other. It's a shame really, Inkling is just on the cusp of being good if only they had a little bit more. They have 75% of everything when they need 80, and the changes required for them don't even have to be large in scale. I already mentioned how you can make Roller 3 times more deadly if they could set up tech chases the same way Roy and Chrom do with down tilt. Or imagine if their back throw was as strong as Dr. Mario's. Suddenly holding shield is not as safe anymore. You would only need to alter or increase the effect of one move to make them feel so much better to play. They have to be a master at something to be popular. Players are drawn to characters usually for a single defining reason. People like Roy for his recklessly overwhelming offense. People like Snake for the psychological pressure he imposes with all of his explosives. People like Bowser for his monster strength and durability. You don't have to excel at everything to be a popular character. It just has to be one or two things. Right now, Inkling is a jack of all trades, master of none. So that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was insightful to those who needed it and entertaining to those who wanted it. For all the Inkling mains watching this, if you could change one thing about them that you think will significantly improve their experience, what would it be? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. For now, if you enjoyed the video, a rating would be much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Also consider following me on Twitter, joining my Discord server, and checking out my previous Why No One Plays episodes if you haven't yet. But until next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.